I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Anthony Angelillo. I've been in this business for about 18 years now, and I run and operate the branch over in Miami Shores. That is my branch, and our name is the Tag Team. So basically, long story short, I also own a e-commerce and marketing company called Tag Team Nation, hence the apparel. And basically, we convert leads and we do a lot of loans, guys. So if you need our financial services, we're trying to hit 100 units or nothing. If you follow me on Instagram, it's a goal of ours, and we believe in our systems and the way we approach, and we are blessed to have opportunity to be in that level. But it's funny, and I will end with this. There's a gentleman that said, congratulations, you're a top producer. He emailed me. He said to me, what are you doing to get leads? And I asked Melinda, what would you say back to something like this? And she says,
what do you think to get leads to become a top producer, right?
Producer. And basically, I'm thinking, work your ass off and have some bags under your eyes, because it's non-stop, man. You keep going. But basically, guys, it's taken a long time to get in this position, but we're doing very well. And damage control is definitely helping out a lot of rookie real estate agents and veterans too. We're helping our community out. And as I always say to Melinda, I'm taking my notes. So with that said, I will leave it to Melinda to introduce herself.
I think I told you to tell him he has to want it bad enough, right? Because otherwise your excuses will get in the way.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I would tell if someone asked me something like that. Anyways, hi guys, Melinda Grimaldi. I'm a real estate and title attorney, co-host here, Damage Control, coming to you live from I-95. I'm almost at my office. I'll be on my computer shortly to do my portion of the show. But what we do, we help people get you closed, get them closed. So we love troubleshooting deals and getting everyone at the closing table. It's such an exciting time. And so to do this show here to help you with your sales, your marketing, your deals, your loans, your contracts. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a little bit more substantive. I know we go into marketing and sales and strategies, but today we're going to get a little bit deeper into some of the nitty gritty about loans. So if you haven't heard yet, there's been some updates on what's coming through the pipeline in when are these effective, Anthony? In January?
January 1st.
Okay, so why don't you take over and explain to us what's happening, what's new?
I'm going to take over, but I'm also going to share one thing, all right? And I think this is going to be a surprise for everyone, but we want your input. We have a logo coming up, and there is
this is cool.
Since Melinda's driving, and I definitely want her to go to the portion of the CD, which is going to be some badass information. I'm going to share my screen right now. Before I share my screen, I want your honest input, and I would like for everyone to just basically tell us what slide, okay, you like. There's 3 slides, and basically we have come up with a damage control logo, but we would love your input, and we respect your input, because if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have this show. But bottom line, there's 3 slides. We've come to the conclusion that we like these 3 the best. There's symbolism behind them, and I'll go into detail. This is live on Facebook, so you guys can comment as well. But let's take the time, and if you guys can share in the comment section which one you like the most, that would be awesome. So that way we can pick. So this is our first logo, and the symbolism of this is the C is dominating the D, hence the word control, damage control. And that is the point of our show, is we're here to alleviate any of the damage that we see on a day-to-day basis. I had 3 files yesterday. I mean, disasters that I had to put together, and all of them worked. So this is slide number 1, okay? Slide number 2 would be this one, the symbolism behind this. And mind you guys, the color schemes can be changed. So if the color is off and you don't like the color, or you do like the color, the symbolism obviously is tag, obviously black and white. Melinda Grimaldi as blue. And we're linking agents together, because even though we're hosting this show, we're interviewing amazing people. And I shit you not, I'm taking notes. This whole notepad is DC, and I'm learning as I'm going. So being that I've done this 18 years, there's always room for growth, right? So this is linking people together. The D is obviously on your left-hand side, and the C, I've got some feedback on maybe we should capitalize the D, and maybe we should also think about the control aspect being different. It's a little bit subtle. Bob over there said maybe it's his eyes, God bless him, but he thinks it should be bold. And then number 3 will be.
All right, what's the third one?
The third one is this one. The damage control with the temperature, which I don't know if I'm in. I like the temperature gauge. You're controlling the damage, the temperature of the damage. I don't know though. Not totally.
No, I think it's between 1 and 2. I think we can drop 3 now.
Drop 3 now.
Well, that's how you do it. Process of elimination.
So if you guys can help us out, that would be awesome. Comment in the chat room and I will go through them again. We've got this one right here.
1s and 2s.
And we've got
a lot of 1s and 2s.
1s and 2s. Or something?
Yeah, I'm trying not to pay too close attention because I'm driving.
Drive safe here. We need the co-host over here. All right. All right, cool, man. So that gives us. We'll tally it up and we'll see what wins. But I'll post this as well, and it's for you guys. So at the end of the day, we want to have a logo, and we've reached that that place of putting a logo together. So that being said, let me go into detail. I've got my notes. So we all know that effective January 1st, right, we have loan limits that are going up, everyone. Loan limits that are going up, one different color. Okay, interesting. I'm getting sidetracked here. All right. Wow, there's a lot of 1s. Okay. All right, interesting. So no one likes the Lincoln. All right. I like the Lincoln, but we'll see. All right, cool. Loan limits. Where are we with loan limits? Right now, conforming product, conventional product, we're at 510, 400. What's going to happen come January 1st? We're going to go up to 548, 250. Okay, so that is a difference of 37,850, 37,000, give or take about 38 grand. It should help us out, obviously, in order for us to, find homes that we can shop for in this chaotic market right now. So obviously, it's been real stressful with a lot of the agents that I'm talking to because the inventory is scarce. This should open up some of the floodgates, 38 grand is 38 grand the way you slice it, any way you slice it. So that definitely will help everyone's situation out. And I do think that, from there, we should be able to have better incentives in terms of better DTI ratios. It's going to help a lot of people out with a lot of things. What are the pros and cons? There's really no cons to that because, it's just a higher loan limit. It's really dependent on how much you actually qualify.
But let's talk about that higher loan limit. I just bought my house. We wanted to stay out of the jumbo, right? Because, when you're in jumbo, it's harder to qualify, especially self-employed. When you're jumbo, you don't get the same competitive rates as much as the conventional, right, Anthony? So why don't you compare the two, please?
So basically, I had this yesterday, actually. So one of my top agents, Clinton, and his team members, they're going to be refinancing. Bottom line is that it's 590,000. So if she does 548, then obviously she's going to be below conforming loan limits at that point come January 1st. What does she do in that situation? You've got options, okay? You can do a jumbo. Anything over 548, 250 is going to be now going into the jumbo territory because it's a refinance rate and term. And there are other, brokerages that do piggybacks as well on something like that. TCF is one of them for purchases and refis to meet that conforming loan limit too. So if someone doesn't want to liquidate, in Melinda's case, she had no choice but to liquidate, and obviously it was beneficial for her in terms of rate. And that's what we did. But she could have saved $38,000 and not liquidated, XYZ. So the pros on that is the liquidation of money. Not too many people these days we're seeing want to put a substantial amount of money down. And let's be honest, most people during these days, during COVID, it's a little bit tough. So, they might not have.
Not only that, the rates are so low. Yeah, it's almost like.
So your dad said, it's free money. It's free money, man. It's free money. What are we doing here? So that's that. Now let me elaborate a little bit about FHA, because I know you guys are probably questioning FHA. Where does that stand? This has not been published yet, but I'm going to take a guess, and I'm pretty good at doing that. I'm going to use the averages. Brian and Adam said the same, that we're thinking that we're going to be at around a 401,250 threshold as opposed to 373,500. Okay, what does that really mean? That means you could shop for a home in between 415, 416 minus the 3.5%. Your loan now is going to be around 401, 200, give or take. So that definitely helps the situation out, especially in Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach areas. It's hard. It's hard to find a good home in a safe neighborhood, good school districts under 300 these days. I mean, it keeps going up and up. So this will definitely help us out. And obviously everyone needs to qualify for that price point. Let me remove you here and make you co-host.
Yep, I just got to my computer, so I'm gonna leave here.
Good.
Awesome. All right.
That was quick. Where the heck did you?
Back in action. Can you guys hear me okay? Excellent, excellent. All right. So I think that's great. I think that gives us room to wiggle, right, Anthony? What do you think?
Without a doubt, man. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it's tough enough, you know. So we definitely need bigger loan. We need to go crazy. I'm not saying go buck wild and raise them too much, but I think that's definitely going to help us out, without a doubt. So
awesome. So we had a special request to go over closing statements. Anthony, you done on that part? I think you wrapped up all the content, right?
I am.
Awesome. So we had a special request to go over closing statements, which I thought was a good topic to go over. It's very substantive. It's very, it's very like nitty gritty, but I think that I see a lot of agents have questions or explain things improperly. And so I thought it was a good topic to go over for damage control, because you want to be able to explain things properly, even though we explain it, right? And so we're going to start off with the different types of closing statements and when they're used, and then I'll show you some and we'll go through and talk about them. So first and foremost, a lot of people still use, regardless of the closing statement type, people still use the word HUD. So a HUD is a type of closing statement. A HUD-1 is a technical term for it, and it's used. When I first started, so I've been doing real estate now. It's been 11 years. When I first started, we were using HUDs, then we went to the GFEs, and now we're at the CDs when it comes to a loan transaction. So we've been through 3 closing statements for that. But for cash deals, we're still using HUDs. And so that's what you would see. And I'll show you an example of that. Let me open up here. I think everyone knows what a HUD is, but just in case you're a rookie, maybe you haven't seen one yet, let me share my screen, Anthony, please. And so a HUD really just includes, the first page will have the introductory information. And then.
You got it now?
Let's see. Yes, sir. So here you'll see the HUD. The beginning talks about the introductory information of the transaction.
These were my favorite, man. These were so clean.
They're so actually they tried to simplify things with the other closing statements and give more protection to borrowers, but I feel like they made it more complicated. This is my favorite closing statement. It makes the most sense to me. But in any event, you'll still see loan number up top. You'll still see mortgage insurance, things like that. You'll still see FHFA, but those won't be used. The only time you'll see this used is a cash transaction, hard money, or commercial like purchaser. So when it's not a traditional residential property with a buyer using conventional type of loan strategies, okay? And then the beginning, we'll talk about the credits and debits of a transaction. And the second page will go through all the closing costs, okay? The closing cost totals always get rolled up to the first page. And you'll see here, the closing costs for the seller. is in line 502, and for the buyer,
So in
it's
this
in
one, the
line
buyer's on the left, the seller's on the right.
correct. Correct.
Man,
And you'll have the closing date, the funding date, et cetera, and you'll have the parties name, property address, et cetera. Okay. Is there any questions in particular? I'm going to talk about prorations and things in conjunction with the other closing statements. Is it okay to move on, or does anyone have any questions about the HUD when it's used or anything like that?
Any questions, let us know via chat, and then I can unmute that person.
There's also a Q&A format in the webinar. It's a new function here. So take a look at that if you want to see that as well. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. So now when we move to a loan transaction actually has three statements. You have a borrower's closing disclosure, a seller's closing disclosure, and a combined ALTA statement. Okay, so I'll go through and the borrower's closing disclosure summarizes the loan terms as well as a transaction. It's what the buyer signs at closing that is prepared. Although we give figures to the lender, the actual document comes from the lender's closing package. And it's signed a few times. Like before closing, there's a 3-day disclosure. I'm sure by now most of you are familiar with the 3-day disclosure. Why don't you talk about a little bit about that and what gets bounced out at that point versus the difference on the closing table?
So let me elaborate on that, because this is good for agents to hear. So basically, I get this a lot, and not too much because the automation kind of buffs it. But we can't, they're balancing a CD. So once you have a CTC, it goes to our closing department, and our closer gets assigned to it, essentially, right? Now they're corresponding with a title company, Grimaldi Law Firm. They're going to balance out that CD. All right. So if by mistake you get that CD as an agent for some odd shape or form, and that, XYZ title company sends over a preliminary CD. I've never had that case with Grimaldi Law Firm, hence why we use them. There's discrepancies, right? Hey, what's this? The numbers are off. The client's pissed off. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. All right. So it is essential to understand that a package can't be released until it's balanced and finalized and approved by both sides. Right. Once that's done, that package then goes and gets issued to Grimaldi Law Firm. At that point in time, her girls are on that, and they're going to disperse that CD and that package to that client, that borrower.
Yes. So the main, what are the three triggers? I know it's interest. There can't be an interest for. So the idea is why there's a 3-day rescission period is that there's certain things can't change. The certain things that can't change. What is the interest rate, right, Anthony?
Interest rate more than 1/8. Okay. And basically, I think it's you can't do any. Well, you can do pricing exceptions afterwards, but if you're
which reduces the cost, but it can't go up.
You can't go higher. I don't know the other two, though, to be honest with you. I couldn't answer.
I think APR, there's a few technical things. The reality is loan closing costs can't go up, and interest rates can't change like that. So that's the point. They didn't want borrowers surprised at the closing table. But it's important to understand that, because most lenders, I would say the few lenders I knew that used to send out balance CD now are not even sending out balance CDs. So really no one's sending out, they're not even sending out balance CDs anymore because of the pipelines being so full that they're just getting them out like unbalanced with as much information as they have on it, and then explaining. But you got to make sure your borrower understands you're going to get one. Make sure you sign it. It might not be exactly what your cash to close is. There might be some changes, things removed, things added, but you still need to sign it, because if you don't sign it, then you're not going to trigger the 3-day waiting period, and then we won't be able to close as scheduled. So it's a super important little quirk there that we need to be mindful of. So if you get those questions, they still sign it. We could change it. We could correct it, and understand that process. Then there's the, I see a question here. Yeah, why can some lenders disclose towards inception of the transaction, other towards the end? Is that an underwriting matter? And I find that disclosure and inception are much smoother. Everyone should be disclosing, right? There's always a disclosure up front, right, Anthony?
So, okay. So it's gonna get, okay. So basically, well, I think what this question is If you issue a LE, you need to wait, which is a loan estimate, you need to wait 24 hours in order for you to release the CD at that point. Okay, so technically that should be done up front. Why it's happening in the end is there is either a difference in interest rate, or they relocked something, or they locked it at that time. And at that point, that LE has a 24-hour rule, and then it's going to be pushed, that CD can go out afterwards. Yeah, income, social security, address, property value, loan amounts. My ops team's hitting me up on all of those are triggers. So
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, it's pretty much the basic
I know.
loan like agreement. It's the basic loan agreement like that they were originally quoted. So there shouldn't be any changes from that point on. Now, the loan estimate also there's triggers, right? Anthony, just to go back in the initial stages, it doesn't look like a CD. It's similar to a CD where it talks about all the costs, expenses, interests, estimates. And
Right.
so with that original loan estimate, there's also triggers, right? Because if you under disclose, then what happens on your end?
Then we're short cash to close. DTI can be off.
No, but even like on your end, you also have internals. If you under disclose, don't you get knocked like compliance wise
Without a
for
doubt.
certain things? Right.
Everything's going to be screwed up. You can't do that at all. So that's something that what we do different, and let me just take 2 seconds out of here and go over that, is when every single client should be disclosed properly and then locked, and that comes after the disclosures. If you're disclosing after appraisals, which I know a lot of people do, and especially if they don't have control over the lock situation, because some of these institutions are capping that, especially what happened with COVID, that's when issues are going to arise. All right, so you want to lock prior. And if your turn times are 45, 60 days, I understand the lock's only valid for 30 days, 45, 60, wherever the case is. But under disclosing, yeah, that's a huge Maven fail and issues right there, because you're going to now have to be paying that as a branch, or in some cases the branch might ding the LO. So definitely a problem. Helps the process go smoother. The tag, yeah, it does, without a doubt. Thank you.
Nice,
So
nice,
just
nice,
like pre-underwriting the file.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now again. We're going to go over a closing disclosure. This is how I explain it to the clients when we go through it. So you'll see it here. So this page here, it go after the property, you'll see here, this page goes over the loan terms. So you'll see loan amount, interest rate, monthly principal, and interest. Then here, this particular borrower also has mortgage insurance and they're escrowing for taxes and insurance. So the total estimated payment is $2,702. Why is it estimated? Because taxes and insurance vary through the years. They can go up, they can go down, claim for homestead, etc. If there's an HOA, a lot of times you'll see other here, but that it's not, HOAs are never included in escrow. Okay. Yes.
Elaborate on one thing, just not to cut or interject you. The other thing that we had is, and there's a lot of issues with this right now, is if you have new construction on that portion of it, all right, make sure that you guys understand the tax bill is not $400 a year. All right, and I've seen this happen. You want to do, and Melinda will elaborate on this, we're using 1.5% millage. So, obviously those taxes are overinflated rather than underestimated. And, if they're purchasing a property, I had the situation arise, the tax bill was really, really low, and they purchased in 2006. Those are going to go up. Those taxes will go up next year, 2021. But educating and Melinda always says, is setting the expectations up for your client to forewarn them and say, hey, listen, not to scare you, but this is where it will be. Not to also convolute the situation and make them scared and overwhelmed, but I just think transparency is extremely important in this conversation, and especially when you're crunching numbers like this. But go ahead.
For sure. So you see, there's a summary of closing costs and the cash to close. The closing cost number is what gets rolled up down here. Okay, that's that number there. And this goes through. So when you're talking about the CD, the first section here, these are all the loan related costs, including the lender title insurance. So you'll see the settlement fee, title insurance, all the appraisal fees and other types of fees. And then this is the processing fees for this particular loan with the points. Okay, Anthony, you want to explain? I don't know if everyone understands what points are. Can you just give like a brief, like one-liner, two-liner about what points are?
Points are discount points associated with the buy down of your interest rate based on your credit score. So I don't really want to go too detailed,
Yeah, but that's good enough, right? Like you you have a credit score. Based on your credit score, you're defaulted at a certain rate. Then
Right.
based on that, you can buy down your rate by paying a little upfront, and that's what the points are, basically, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, and of
Definitely.
course, these fees vary from lender to lender, but this is just an example of one that I just pulled randomly. Okay. And then you'll see here, this is the recording section. So doc stamps and recording fees for the mortgage and the deed here. The buyer pays for the mortgage, the seller will pay for the deed doc stamps. You don't see that on the borrower's CD. Okay, then you had the prepaid, so 1 year of insurance, interest to the first payment, and then what starts your escrow account. This is, people are like, yeah, but I already paid my homeowner's insurance. This is like the deposit towards your escrows. So you're depending on the time of year, etc. This part will vary, and depending on how much it costs and how much the insurance costs and how much property taxes are, they divide it by 12 and get an average monthly number, and then they put a few months in to like give you a base to start with. Is that a good description, Anthony?
That's actually good. Yes. I was thinking about
Excellent. So this number here, the closing cost total 20, gets rolled over to the next page, which is the summary of the transaction. So you'll see some of the seller stuff here, not all, only as it relates to impacting the buyer. So here's the closing cost from that page. It gets rolled here. So the first section is what is due from the borrower. So we have the price plus closing costs plus prorations for the amount of time that they were not the owner. And then that's a total amount due from the buyer, this top line here. Then we're going to subtract the deposit, the loan amount, and any other prorations. And that takes us to here, our cash to close. Total amount due minus all the credits and payments is the cash to close. The next page is some standard terms, and then we go into everyone involved in the transaction. Okay. The seller CD is basically the seller side of the transaction. So let me pull this up here. You'll see here is the same prorations are here, just debited instead of credited, vice versa. The payoffs, and that the cash to the seller. When I'm reviewing, when I represent a seller and I'm reviewing closing statements, I like to review it in a seller CD format because it makes more sense than the combined ALTA, and I'll explain to you why. So you'll see here the total amount due to the seller minus all their costs, and this 25,577 is what is the total of all the closing costs for that seller that get paid at closing. Okay. Any questions on the closing disclosures so far? So the closing disclosures are don't have like the other party signing off on them, right? So that's why the ALTA is also done. The ALTA is what's used as proof with the city to what's given to the broker for proof that the transaction is actually closed. So that doesn't have all the loan terms, but it does have all the closing costs, credits, and debits from the transaction. It's a little different than the HUD because it's all lumped together. There's no like summary page and then closing cost page. All the credits, debits, and expenses are all lumped together. So it's a little bit harder to read if you're looking at it, especially if you're not too used to looking at it. Also, the buyer and seller columns are swapped from the HUD. They're the opposite direction. So let me share the screen and show you the ALTA. Here's the combined ALTA. You'll see here, everything from the seller debit credit is here. Everything from the buyer debit credit is here. It should match exactly to the other transaction CDs that you have, and the total should be the same here from the bottom. But really the only difference is it's all lumped together and you have both sides of the transaction. So when you're explaining why, if there's two, if that ever comes up, it just says this one here has both sides versus the one you assigned previously is just for you. This is also what the city wants to look at, either the HUD or the ALTA to turn on or off the utilities. So that is the combined ALTA. I would say when you're an agent and you're going through a transaction, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side, the first, as you get to the week of closing, always ask for a copy of the closing statement, because you know a bit of the backstory, you know what's going on. So you could actually give good feedback on certain things if there's something to be added or taken out. Also, make sure your commissions are right. Don't wait till the after closing for the commissions to be off. You should be checking your own commission. It's your it's our responsibility to put them on there and show them to you and make sure they're right, but it's your responsibility to make sure they're right as well, because that's your paycheck, so you want to make sure it's correct. And so looking into that and processing fees up front and not waiting to the last minute, especially if you're on the buyer side and you have a processing fee, you don't want to wait till the day of closing to make sure it's on there, because at that point we're already balanced, the wire may have been sent, and then you're creating a problem. So disclose those fees early on. Remember, we don't see listing agreements. We don't know the commission splits. We're going to default at 3 and 3 unless we're told otherwise. So, asking that, my system requested from you guys up front. So we had that information already, but just, take a look at it, make sure, because I love to have the feedback before we're at the closing table than at the closing table. That's why we're very big on sending drafts early on. We don't like to send borrowers drafts too early because we don't have all the fees in from the lender. So we're asked that, and then it's like, okay, well, if they insist, we send it, but we're saying, listen, none of the lender's fees are in here, so this is really a rough draft. But some of them get anxious for that.
Like a preliminary CD.
Yeah, it's really missing a lot, because the preliminary CD just has the things that we control in there, not you. So the way I explain it to my team when we're talking about CDs is there's certain things that I control or my team controls, title controls, and there's certain things that the lender controls. So we're talking about closing costs, loan related fees. That's like the lender's department. I cannot change those without them telling me it's okay to change. Same thing with escrows, prepaids, and anything regarding like the escrow accounts. When it comes to title insurance, recording fees, credits, debits, prorations, that's stuff that I control, right? So that's what I can change. And that's what I tell the lender, hey, you have this wrong, fix it like this. Versus the lenders will say, hey, you have this, so there's certain things that we're the boss of, and then there's certain things that the lender's the boss of. And we go back and forth and make sure that our numbers that we're in charge of matches with the lenders, and vice versa.
I just
would you say that's how I describe it, Anthony? I don't know. That's the balancing process, is like you change yours to match me in these things, and I change mine to match yours in these departments.
I always say control the lead, control your paycheck, right? And your commission, right? And it's all about control in this business, because if you know that you're good and you're disciplined, you've got systems in play, and you know that everything is transparent, you're only as good as the people you're associated with, right? So I had a closing recently. It was out of state, and the title company, God bless their souls, kept going back and forth. And I was so irritated. It was almost like watching a chef drop the steak on the floor 15 times and then serving it to you, right? It's like, what are we doing here? So the email back and forth of balancing the CD with the buyer on there, and the buyer's agent, the seller's transaction coordinator, what are we doing? Like it doesn't look professional. It looks sloppy, and it's just too much communication. So now you're scaring the hell out of the borrower, because they're seeing a CD go back and forth 15 times with the wrong numbers.
Usually it goes back and forth, I would say 2 to 3 times. That's like an average.
I'm exaggerating because it was really irritating, but obviously
but we don't put the parties on there, the lenders on there. This is like a lender title thing. And well, why? Because like we get our language, like we have shorthand, and we have like things how we say it in requests, and so we don't put you guys on there or the buyers, because it's really like a technical thing. And then until it's final, that's when it should go out, because you're creating questions sometimes that are not even there, because sometimes we put estimates up front, but then we take them off, and vice versa. So we have to adjust as we go along.
Yeah. And I just, at the end of the day, set the expectations properly. If they want a number, then obviously call the lender and say, look, what is the itemized fee going to, sheet 2010 itemized fee sheet going to say? And usually page 3 is going to show you that cash to close. We do prorations up front. The reason why I do that, because I don't want last minute spikes on taxes and saying, hey, what's going on? Now everything just went up in terms of our cash to close. So everything is up front. And some people say, hey, I got a pre-approval letter faster than you guys issued it. Yeah, but is it really valuable, viable, and is it going to be, legit? So it's just interesting the way that Melinda operates, and I've got to say kudos to her and her team. The communication through our Slack channel, that's important. It's extremely important because they are on the same wavelength in terms of the closing package being released. When should it be released? It's that timing. And if your clients need to know numbers, then get in touch with your lender. That's what the loan officer is for, right? So
Yes. Awesome. So we're open for more questions if you guys have any. We're not going to overkill the topic unless you guys want to know a little bit more. So we're open for that. We're also open for additional topics. This was based on a special request, so we threw it on there and we added the updates that were in the pipeline. So we're happy to always bring in new topics as you guys think of it. So let us know either now in the Slack private channel or later on. You could text, call, or find us in the DMs.
You guys will be receiving after this. Melinda and I came up with how to prorate real estate tax formulas. It's good to know. It's obviously our side, but it's always beneficial for you guys to learn how to do this stuff and understand how taxes are formulated. And then also,
yes,
this is Melinda's little cheat sheet and the standards of who's paying title insurance by county. This is a big question.
What the custom is, right? Because everything's up to negotiation, but what the custom is in those.
Correct. So
counties. Yep.
These sheets will go out, and this is good stuff. So that way you guys can master your game. But this one is good. This one I like the most. The proration of taxes, very hard. I know how to do it, but we give examples. And
let me give a little bit more on taxes since we're talking about them. So basically, we don't have the tax bill till November. We get the trim around August. The trim notice is an estimate of what the fees are going to be. So the point is, from January until July, we have about I don't know how many months that is anyways, like 7 months where we're using the previous year's tax bill.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's a big change, there's a right to reprorate per the contract, but we're using the previous year's tax bill, giving 4% and then doing the prorations. The seller will credit the buyer in those months because those months are owned by the buyer or by the seller, and we can't pay them until November. So that credit happens on the closing statement. Then once the trim notices come out, we start to use the trim notices for prorations. And then usually in September, October, lenders require us to collect property taxes. I hate that part of the closing process because we're holding this money. And then in November, we got to pay, I don't know how many we had to pay this year for closings that we had to hold back. And it's just, and then we have to make sure we collect enough. So we're always collecting a little bit more. There's a few files that they're very tight, so we don't collect it all. And then we have to go back and ask for $100 or $200, sometimes $1,000 because it was a big change in the tax bill because of new construction or whatever, depending on how it went. So the conclusion is just know that once November hits, we use the actual bill. We make sure it's paid. And then in November, we give the 4% credit, the 3% in December. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. Now, whoever pays it gets the credit for the part time of that they were not the owner. So if the seller's paying it, then the buyer gets the credit. The seller's paying it, the seller will get the credit for the amount of time that they were not the owner. So that usually happens towards the end of the year. Otherwise, it's the buyer paying it and the seller giving the credit for the amount of time that they were the owner. So usually that's a larger credit because it's for more time. And then in Broward, there's ad valorem and non-ad valorem taxes. So ad valorem taxes are based on the value of the property. Those are the ones that are paid in arrears. Those are the majority of your tax bill. And those are like paid in arrears. The non-ad valorem are the city services. Those vary throughout. Usually a couple $100 or so in Broward, and those are paid moving forward. And the term is from 10/1 of the year of the tax bill till the 9/30 of the following year. So technically that is already being prepaid. So if you see if in Broward two prorations, it's because one is prepaid by the seller and one is going to be paid later by the buyer, and that's how they're split.
And guys, that's why we do, I shit you not, we had probably a handful, maybe even a dozen of deals that we saved because the cash to close was short, right? And no one ever took the time to do prorations, and they were getting credits back. So the cash to close actually was lower than anticipated from the prior lender. So it's just doing the little things. Cheating the system's not going to get you anywhere. It's doing the little things, taking it, going to the property appraiser's website, pulling up the tax bill, making sure PACE is not on there, making sure they're legit. Don't be using Zillow or realtor.com for your tax bills. That's
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do.
And then there's also a tax estimator. Every county has a tax estimator. You could just Google tax estimator Broward County. You put the purchase price in, and it'll shoot it out for you. You don't even have. And then if the client asks, you could send them that. You could send them a screenshot of that with the link, and they can look at it themselves, because you don't want to ever guarantee anything. But this is what the property appraiser is saying will be at this purchase price, because it will get reassessed on January 1st. For that,
That's what I just explained to Kashana's client. I was in Tennessee and I'm chilling in my car and I'm talking to her saying it's $1,600, but you're buying a $500,000 home, so it's going to be probably around 538. And she loved it. She's like, "Thank you so much for going over that." Just setting boundaries, expectations. It's important, very important in this business.
Excellent. So we already asked a non-ad valorem question that was just put in the chat. So I think we have one in the. Someone asked if I specialize in commercial real estate. We do a lot of commercial real estate, actually. My background with my family is commercial real estate. So I have quite a bit of experience with commercial loans, commercial refinances, commercial purchases and sales, multi-unit properties, hotels, motels, warehouses, etc. So yes, we do. All right. Any other questions? If not, I think that's a wrap. Yes, Sandy, you could send me an email. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have. All right, guys. So I think that is a wrap for this episode. What episode number are we? 32?
No, 31. 32 is next one.
Okay.
31. Everyone's picking one or two. I gotta think about this now. I'm confused with all the.
I think we're two. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. We're way past 30. So guys, if you are registered as a subscriber to DC, you will get all our materials that Anthony just showed and shared. They're great resources to have on hand. And if you're watching this live or on a replay in YouTube and you want access, make sure you subscribe and then shoot us a DM, and we're happy to send that to you. All right, guys.
All the information is going to be sent to you, emails, phone numbers, so all our contact information too. We're getting questions of what our information is. You'll know it, and you'll see us on IG. So look it up, and you'll get it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.